Hola, bon dia. Carl Munson here with the Good Morning Portugal live stream. And of course, we've got quite a lot to talk about this morning with the state of emergency extended as it has been yesterday by the Portuguese Government Assembly. And we suspected it was heading that way. So let's have a look at some of the implications of what that's going to mean today, how that affects you, and what you're thinking about it as we go deeper into the show later on in the stream here. So let's have a look at, first of all, at our very good friends reporting of this. Safe Communities Portugal. Yeah, I'm a bit breathless this morning. Nothing to worry about as far as I'm aware. I just ran up the stairs to do this. I don't know what's happening with time at the moment. It would appear I have a lot of it on my hands, but it seems to be flying by as well. I don't know what your experience of time is at the moment. Very busy household here with young children. That might be something to do with it. And I can't for the life of me get to this position by 9 o'clock in the morning. But anyway, enough of my personal challenges. Good morning to you, Hannah. Hi there. Great to see you. Great to hear from you. Remind me, where are you right now, Hannah, in the world, if you're prepared to share that sort of information? Anyway, let's go to Safe Communities Portugal. And they continue to deliver fantastic coverage. Let's begin, shall we, with the I suppose this man brings such gravity to the situation. I'm a big fan. This is the latest news from the President of the Republic. He spoke to the country regarding the renewal of the state of emergency for another 15 days from the Palace of Belém. Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa announced that the measures will now enter into force and will continue until the 17th of April. So that's the headline here. The state of emergency is extended and will last until the 17th of April, when the state of emergency may or may not be renewed once more. Now, I don't know if that means it can only be renewed once more, or again, it will be looked at. I think this can be extended at will, frankly, with the way it's been set up. But that is, forgive me, that is just a personal suspicion. This will perhaps be our biggest challenge in the last 45 years. That's the thing here. This will perhaps be our biggest challenge for the last 45 years. That to me is pretty significant. And I think, obviously they're referring to the last big challenge was the revolution, the overthrow of the fascist regime here. And this is how we work, isn't it, as human beings, comparing these milestones in history. And Marcelo, as it comes as no surprise, I suppose, to many, as each day deepens the impact here. Biggest challenge in the last 45 years for Portugal. COVID-19 pandemic brutally aggravates poverty and inequality, notes the President of the Republic, which I think is a stunning observation, and that's why I like him so much. Carl, stop going into your personal stuff. Let's keep it on track. Also, for this reason, its economic and social effects will be more profound and lasting than the longest crises we have ever lived, anticipates the head of state. We cannot cheapen the consolidation of the first phase, warns the President of the Republic, after congratulating the Portuguese people for their efforts throughout the state of emergency. And let me extend that to you this morning, because there are so many unsung heroes here, aren't there? And okay, quietly getting on with their lives, following the instructions. But big up to you if you've done what you're doing, if you've stayed indoors, if you've socially isolated, if you physically distanced for the greater good. Let me personally acknowledge you for doing that. I think it's really important. Highlighting the countless sectors in Portugal that have not rested, the President described 4 phases in the fight against COVID-19. The first is characterized by exponential growth of the pandemic, the second by the deceleration of the outbreak and treating patients with mild symptoms at home. I think they called that mitigation. In the third phase, the most serious cases caused by the pandemic will have to be faced. And in the fourth phase, progressive stabilization is expected of Portuguese collective life. We are in phase 2, going into phase 3, I think, looking at that. And as well as outlining those 4 phases, he also emphasized the need to focus on 5 fundamental objectives. And here they are: protecting at-risk groups wherever they live, whether at home, in our home, or on the street. Again, Portuguese ethics at work there, making specific mention of vulnerable people on the street and how they need to be cared for. Fantastic. Use common sense to open the state of emergency to prevent situations of rupture in prison establishments, particularly among the population at greatest risk. Yes, to ensure that despite the many reasons which there are for tiredness and anxiety, this Easter we shall not exchange a few years in the life and health of everyone for a few days of vacation or extended family reunion of some. That is a very important one, I think, and we may wish to examine that further later on in our discussion here, conversation. Do join me if you want to call me, 913-590-303, or just shout out on the comments there. To ask, this is number 4, to ask that our compatriots who want to come from abroad comply with the strict recommendations that we will adopt for Easter and rethink to postpone their plans. Defining the scenarios for the academic year is the final one, taking into account the evolution of the pandemic for April. During this second phase, the president said that we must win the second phase and conquer April. This is all about the mitigation, isn't it? And warned that we will only conquer April if we don't let our guard down. Additionally, he reminded us that our situations have shown that previous journeys to hometowns have prolonged the pandemic for an added 30 days. Good heavens. I think that is part of the looking at the Italian trajectory of this. The president warns that the number of infected will reach tens of thousands, but the next weeks will be the most decisive, and there will also be tens of thousands of lives saved. Okay, so I think perhaps what I neglected to put up this morning was the facts and figures and numbers for you, and I will find that right now. Let me, what you need to do is go to covid19.min-saud.pt. I'm sure if you just type in DGS and COVID-19, you'll go to where I'm going right now. And we will have a look at specifically at the facts and figures as they present them. Yes, Hannah, good morning to you. You're in your kitchen, South London style. Good morning to you there. And also from Stephanie, good morning from sunny Tavira. Which is rubbing it in a bit. Sorry about that, Hannah. So we have Stephanie from sunny Tavira when you're in South London, wishing to be in Portugal. Let's keep our fingers crossed for you for that we can get this done as quickly as possible. Sorry, it sounded like Boris there. That we can get through this as quickly as possible and have you enjoying the Algarve once more, which I think is your favourite place here. I'm not sure. Okay, so let's go to DGS and see what the figures are this morning before we go back to some of that state of emergency analysis. And here you will see current situation in Portugal, and confirmed cases over 9,000 now. The recovery figure, there was some concern about this because it just stayed at 43 for the last few days. That, I believe, is because the testing is being reserved or prioritized elsewhere. For an official recovery, you have to be tested, and obviously that might be seen as a less important testing case than people on the front line and elsewhere, and confirming at the front line of things. But 209 deaths, as you'll see there, and the suspected cases rising to 66,895. These are the numbers reported from the Department of Health that we look at most mornings. So yeah, the trend, I don't even need to say it really. The trend is continuing to go upwards, and yes, we are in this second phase, the mitigation phase, and looking to flatten the curve. That's what the watch phrase is, isn't it, at the moment? Okay, let us continue then looking at Safe Communities Portugal and added information. There's a lot, really, a lot of implications, a lot to digest, and we don't suspect we can do that all in one go here. But I will endeavour to give you what I think are the headlines on this. The new lost you for a moment there, but we're back now. When I share the screen, sometimes it crashes the browser. So let's have a look if I can bring that back once more. Yeah, there we go. Safecommunitiesportugal.com, a really good place to get your information. I hope you can still hear me okay. Let me just check that the microphone is still working. And yeah, we're okay. We're good. Okay. The new measures announced at 20 to 7 last night in a briefing with reporters following the Council of Ministers meeting. Prime Minister Antonio Costa relayed a set of main measures contained in the decree. Let's work our way through these. Firstly, the PM affirmed that a set of rules for clarification of previous provisions will be established. For instance, there should be no gathering of more than 5 people, except, of course, with family ties and large families. Two very important measures concern the extension of the deadline for owners to clean the forest to the 30th of April. And the whole forest fire issue is there in the background for us, isn't it? And, you know, the past and previous horror of that. And that is a job that needs to be done, but there is an extension to the deadline. And we mustn't forget the enormous risk of forest fire in the country, the Prime Minister is saying there. Additionally, there is a clarification of the exemption from user fees for COVID-19 patients, whether during a diagnosis or a treatment phase. Excellent. No fees to pay for COVID-19 patients. I think in most, if not all cases. Easter constitutes a particularly critical moment and one when it is essential to restrict circulation in the national territory. So here we go. Between midnight on Thursday, the 9th of April, and midnight on Monday, the 13th, yeah, forgive me if I've got those timings slightly wrong. But anyway, from Thursday, you know, with how the 0, 100 and 2400 works, but from Thursday the 9th anyway to Monday the 13th, any travel outside the municipality of habitual residents will be prohibited, except naturally for those who have to travel for the exercise of professional activities that are allowed, or in the 3 municipalities which have territorial discontinuity, such as Villarreal de Santo Antonio, Montijo, and Oliveira de Azamesh. Workers who need to move to another concelho during the 5 days when the restriction on circulation will be tighter, excuse me, must have a declaration from the employer to prove their work address, says the Prime Minister. So a proper closing down of movement in that Easter period, anticipating that people will want to move, and the reiteration, the reinforcement of the fact that they should stay where they are. In this same period, all national airports will be closed for passenger traffic. Cargo flights, humanitarian nature, Portuguese repatriation flights, or state flights and military nature are maintained. Other restrictive measures. The Minister of Health and the Minister of Internal Administration, taking into account World Health Organization recommendations, will define countries, territories from which travel will require a medical consultation in view of preventing infection from occurring. Good news. Air transport will have a limitation of capacity set to only 1/3 in order to ensure greatest possible social distance. So yeah, capacity on planes down to 1/3. This is a measure that has already taken place with public transportation, which will continue in effect. In addition, measures will be taken in regard to strengthening the authorities' competencies for working conditions. Unfortunately, the Prime Minister says, in this period, and despite the measures that have been adopted to support the sustainability of companies, there have been abuses. Therefore, inspectors may be required to reinforce the framework for labour inspections. Antonio Costa stressed that no one has the right to take advantage of this circumstance to abuse and exploit workers or consumers. Well said, sir. Finally, a law proposal will be submitted to the AR in line with appeals launched by the United Nations High Commissioner and the Ombudsman that aim to prevent the pandemic in prisons. Forgive me, I do not know what the AR is, but good news for people who are detained there. The process by which the President of the Republic can grant a release of prisoners for humanitarian reasons will be streamlined. For instance, people at risk due to old age and underlying illnesses. I won't go too deeply into that, but it's there for you to see at safecommunitiesportugal.com. Have there been, let's see, comment from Stephanie, have there been any updates about doing more testing in Portugal? It seems like the countries like South Korea, who have done massive testing, has been the most effective, as so many have, but do not have symptoms. Okay, I'm not sure about that, to be honest with you, Stephanie. Maybe somebody else can chip in with an answer to that. Good morning all from Dawn and Jerry, I'm guessing. Good morning to you, Dawn. So let's have a little bit of a look at what the papers are saying, how they've responded to that. Interesting stuff about airports here from the Lisbon resident, I believe. Let me share that with you now. That would be, airports locked down for Easter. Just a bit more flesh on the bones there about how the airports are going to be worked. Thank you to Natasha Don for this from the Portugal resident airports to be locked down for Easter. All of them. The government's message up until now, fairly gentle, that this year we have to forget the holiday suddenly became deadly serious. Yeah, that this year the holiday suddenly became deadly serious. Outlining new measures to face the pandemic, Prime Minister said early this evening that the country is at a very difficult moment and that demands the effort of everyone. He televised entreaties to emigres not to come home this year, as you won't be able to leave the house. This is now morphed into a stark fait accompli. You cannot come. That's pretty. I mean, that must be very disappointing, obviously, for people who do come home at Easter time. Border guards will be strictly controlling land crossings from Spain, and the numbers of people allowed in any one vehicle at a time is to be reduced to 2 from midnight on Thursday the 9th to midnight on Monday, April the 13th. That's helpful. Thank you. The country will be hunkering down in a way that it hasn't since the dark days of the dictatorship. Wow. Other measures introduced during the second phase of Portugal's virus-led state of emergency are jail pardons. There we go. We have already looked into that. And in the labour sphere, the finances folks, the tax inspectors are to have the powers to suspend any incidents of illegal collective dismissal. Good protection of workers there. Good to see that. And other measures, hospital charges for COVID-19 patients to be waived. Excellent. Deadlines for clearing land, as we said, extended beyond April 15th. Mandatory doctor's visits for anyone arriving from a list of countries to be released by health authorities. That's to follow. And as we said before, planes flying at 1/3 of capacity. Okay, just to take another thing from this article here, the road ahead is very long and demanding. So no kind of respite to this for the foreseeable future. And to add to that, let's just have a look. But before we do, let's say hi to Julie Marsh. Good morning from sunny Fundao. Snow did not last long. Thank you for all the facts and figures on here. My husband and I sit down every lunchtime to catch up with you on YouTube. Thank you. We watch BBC also, as have family and friends there. Me too. BBC and LBC. I'm checking out for the UK, but want to catch up about Portugal on here. Now off to do weekly essential food shop with my daughter. Hope everyone has a nice and safe day. Thank you, Julie. That's from Julie and Clint there in Fundao. I will be talking, just on a bit of a tangential note, I'm talking to Shimahito, a company based in Fundao at 11 o'clock. I work with a community-focused social network called OurNet and OurNet.news. And we are talking in our daily live stream to the Adriel and Michelle from Shimahito, who have a fantastic approach to growing mushrooms specifically, but to revolutionizing the way we create food, grow food, produce food, and change the future of food, I think. Very exciting company. And we're going to need ideas like that, I think. And now that we've seen the precariousness of our food supply chains, what they're doing is really exciting to me. And I'll be talking to them at 11 o'clock. That's over on OurNet, OurNet, OurNet on the Facebook page, live streaming my interview with them from sunny Fundao, as it turns out this morning. Thank you for that, Julie. One final look then at a piece of news that's arising from the extended state of emergency. This one, just the beginning for Portugal. That's like, oh no, we thought, like how much longer? Just the beginning, says the Director of Health. The outbreak of COVID-19, thanks to PortugalNews.com for this, will not last a fortnight or 2 or 3 months, but the time it takes until there is a vaccine available. And this is what the minister is saying. The Portuguese have to understand, and that will include us expats and explorers based here for the duration, that we are not finishing anything. We are just beginning a journey. It is up to us to counteract the activity of a virus that is extremely intelligent, extremely aggressive, both in the way it is transmitted and in the way it can lead to serious disease. We cannot demobilize, said Graça Freitas at a press conference that allowed the release of the figures on the COVID-19 disease in Portugal. According to the Director General of Health, it is necessary to acknowledge that this is not a matter of a fortnight, 2 or 3 months. Until there is a vaccine, then this situation will last for months. The minister of Health, Marta Tamido, added that to face this phenomenon, it will be necessary for great discipline and capacity of resistance. We're working on it, and that citizens must continue to maintain social distance to try to minimize the consequences of the disease. We cannot rely on luck. We need everyone's actions to help to reduce the number of infected with the virus and the number of victims, she said. The official recalled the cases of miners confined to a mine in Chile in 2010, or the children who were trapped in a cave in Thailand 2018, to state that what is being done is difficult, puts everyone to the test, but it is necessary. Unusual cases to call upon. We must keep working. We must keep working activities as far as possible because we need to keep society functioning for everyone, but we must avoid gestures, superfluous acts, even with people who know us well. Yes, so keep those superfluous acts with people you know well to a minimum. In order to be able to embrace again, we need to first move ourselves far from each other. That's really poetic, isn't it? That to me strikes me as a sort of typically Portuguese literary turn of phrase. In order to be able to embrace again, we need to first move ourselves far from each other. So there you go. That is the continued direction and reiteration from the government. And you can read all the rest of that for yourself at portugalnews.com. So we've got Portugal Resident, Portugal News for English-speaking papers, and the source that I used as we began here, the safecommunitiesportugal.com website. A really good place to look. Craig Morfitt, another good source. He's in Porto Expats. I will share that in the Good Morning Portugal page and the Stay Positive Portugal group. And I will wish you, as Julie's done there from sunny Fundao, a nice, safe day. Take care. Stay well, stay safe. Até logo. And yes, it's Friday today, isn't it? So I may just jump in over the weekend if there's anything that I think is worthy of sharing with you. Otherwise, and this is bizarre because it's the whole thing, Bon fin de semana, have a good weekend, is meaningless now, isn't it? This is one long weekend, folks, but I think it's quite useful to have a little bit of a break from the intensity, even if we have something of a notional weekend, even if every day is like Sunday now. And just a last minute good morning from Barbara. Good morning to you, Barbara. Good to hear from you. So, yeah, I mean, it does sound a strange thing to say, but have a great weekend because I'm in the habit of saying that. We all are, aren't we? Bon fin de semana. And I will, as I said, drop in with anything that seems very important to share with you. Otherwise, see you on Monday. Take care and bye for now.